My name is John Lee, and I'll be talking about the success of failure. I grew up in Singapore, where it was a competitive environment, especially in education. I always wanted to be the top in class, and my parents never expected anything less. They never took failure as an excuse. When I went for a scholarship interview recently, they asked me, "What was your greatest setback in life? What was your greatest failure?" That struck me hard. What is my greatest failure? And why do people even remember that sort of thing? On the record, many people always remember the success stories, but off the record, people do not know how many times you failed before you reach that success. Look at J.K. Rowling. She wrote the most renowned series, Harry Potter, but what people did not know was that that book was rejected by child publishers before it got published. Even for entrepreneurships, people do not know how many times the entrepreneurs have failed before they reach that point of success. Look at Richard Branson. You don't know how many times he failed. I believe that failures made me who I am today. My greatest failure was when I was 13 and I had a really bad stuttering and low confidence problem. I used to stutter so much that I could not form proper sentences. I spoke like this, and I just could not make any friends because I could not hold proper conversations. I was a really lonely child, and I used to go home alone and sulk, and sometimes I even contemplated suicide. My low confidence made my parents worry, and they even contemplated sending me to counseling sessions. I believe for failure, you have two responses. First is that you don't accept it. You start to enter denial, where you always blame something else for your mistakes. You start to blame a family member. You start to blame circumstance. You can even find good in the failure to the point that you don't even take the lessons out of it. You just brush it aside and say it won't happen again. On the other hand, you can always accept failure. You recognize it, you start to determine what failed, and start to understand what made it successful. Then you work on what is successful, and you start to improve on it. For my stuttering problem, I started to research on my stutter. I started to understand hand gestures to improve my presentation skills. Eventually, after days and days of practicing in the mirror, I started to lose the stutter. I even tried different accents to lose that stutter. And here I am. After so many times, so many practices, here I am giving you this TED speech on the success of failure. Even in Singapore, where it's such a tough environment to compete, I realized that sometimes there is also that fear of failing. The fear of having even not tried at all. It's because of our pride. It's because of our shame that we don't even dare to try to succeed. And what I realized is the fear of failing is even worse than failing. And how to embrace this is for us to face it and try to take baby steps. In conclusion, to face failure, you can either not accept it and face denial, or accept it and learn from there and overcome it. But I believe the greatest failure is not even having tried at all. Thank you.